Remember when milk arrived on your doorstep before sunrise, or when fish and chips came wrapped in real newspaper? Life in 1960s Britain was full of small rituals, quirky habits, and everyday sights that feel almost unimaginable today. From chamber pots to Sunday roasts, these forgotten treasures paint a vivid picture of a very different time. Before indoor plumbing was widespread, chamber pots were a nightly necessity. They lived under beds, ready for use when venturing to the freezing outside toilet wasn't an option. Children dreaded emptying them in the morning, yet the humble Gozunder was a fixture of British life. The familiar sound of hooves and rattling carts meant the coalman had arrived. Clad in black dust, he carried heavy sacks into homes, tipping fuel into bunkers. Coal powered everything: heating, ovens, and hot water, making these deliveries essential. Many households depended on them right into the 1960s. Glass bottles clinking on doorsteps were part of daily life. Milkmen rose early, delivering fresh milk with foil tops. Children often pinched the creamy layer before breakfast. Neighbours left empty bottles outside for collection. A simple recycling system decades ahead of its time and central to community rhythms. Even after wartime ended, ration books remained into the early 1950s, shaping Britain's eating habits. Families carefully exchanged coupons for essentials, sometimes finding shelves empty regardless. The little brown booklets represented austerity, discipline, and shared sacrifice. For many children, rationing defined their earliest memories of shopping and mealtimes. Linoleum covered countless British kitchens and hallways. Cheap, practical, and easy to clean, its shiny patterned surface became instantly recognisable. Though it lacked the charm of polished wood or fitted carpet, lino represented progress for working-class homes. Many recall slipping across its surface in socks during childhood games. Unlike today's overstretched system, family doctors once made daily house calls. Equipped with a black bag, they treated coughs, fevers, and emergencies right in the front room. Their personal knowledge of entire families built trust, reassurance, and continuity. For many, the kindly GP's knock symbolised comfort and dependable care. School children carried simple lunches, and one oddity was the apple sandwich. Thin slices of tart apple pressed between buttered bread offered sweetness without cost. Some swapped the fruit for brown sauce, but the apple version remains the quirky classic. These humble sandwiches reflected the thrift and inventiveness of post-war households. Generations of children rushed to newsagents for the Beano. Full of mischievous characters like Dennis the Menace, it provided endless entertainment for pennies. Kids shared issues in playgrounds, swapping stories of Bash Street antics. Long before smartphones, the comic was Britain's gateway to cheeky humour, slapstick fun, and imagination. With coal heating came risk. Soot build-up often sparked chimney fires, terrifying households. Flames roared up flues while neighbours gathered outside, watching sparks fly across rooftops. Sometimes the local fire brigade intervened. Other times, families battled with salt or damp cloth. A dangerous, smoky reminder of Britain's reliance on coal. Before full electrification, Lamplighters were a familiar evening sight. Climbing ladders, they wound up clockwork switches or lit gas mantles, bringing warm glows to otherwise darkened streets. Children followed in fascination, nicknaming them the Light Men. Their steady rounds disappeared as electric street lamps replaced tradition with automatic, reliable illumination. Not every chocolate made the cut, but imperfect ones didn't go to waste. Sold cheaply in paper bags, Cadbury's Misshapes offered odd lumps, broken biscuits, and misformed sweets. For families on tight budgets, they were a hidden treasure. The taste was identical, only the shape betrayed their factory floor origins. Long before plastic clappers, fans brought wooden football rattles to matches. Spun loudly, they created deafening clicks echoing through terraces. Originally gas warning devices in wartime, they found a second life in sport. Their shrill racket embodied the energy of 1960s football crowds, later banned for safety, yet fondly remembered. Post-war Britain built vast estates of council housing, offering working families security and dignity. These sturdy brick homes often included gardens and modern amenities many renters lacked. Generations grew up in them, forging tight-knit communities. Today, people recall council houses as symbols of progress, fairness, and shared social improvement. Laundry day meant hard labour. Clothes were boiled in dolly tubs, then twisted through heavy mangles to squeeze out water. Steam filled kitchens, and red raw hands scrubbed stubborn stains. Washing machines were rare luxuries, so households relied on these clumsy contraptions, turning laundry into a day-long family ordeal. British seaside towns weren't just fish and chips, they buzzed with juke joints. Teenagers crowded into dimly lit halls, dropping coins into jukeboxes blaring rock and roll. Dancing, flirting, and rebellion filled the nights. For working-class youth, these lively spaces offered independence, excitement, and the soundtrack of early 1960s Britain. Every morning, children lined up for their spoonful of cod liver oil. Teachers swore by its health benefits, though most pupils gagged at the taste. Delivered in big brown bottles, it was seen as a prevention against rickets. Many remember dreading that daily ritual, yet parents insisted it built strength. A curious household accessory, the copper plate sat outside the front doors. Milk bottles were placed on it, keeping them cool before refrigerators were common. Some plates had decorative patterns, others were plain, but they all served the same purpose. This simple, forgotten tool reflects Britain's practical ingenuity before modern conveniences. Every so often, the soot had to go. Chimney sweeps arrived with brushes, rods, and soot cloths. Children sometimes watched in fascination as black clouds billowed. Though industrial safety improved their work by the 1960s, sweeps remained essential for keeping coal-heated homes safe, clean, and free from choking smoke. Cheap and strong, Woodbines were the cigarette of choice for Britain's working classes. Known as gaspers for their harsh smoke, they came in simple green packets. Despite health risks, they were ubiquitous in pubs, factories, and football terraces. Today, their distinctive name conjures memories of an era before smoking bans. Until 1960, young men faced compulsory national service. For 2 years, they trained, drilled, and sometimes served overseas. Experiences varied. Some loathed the regimentation, while others found lifelong discipline and camaraderie. When the scheme ended, Britain shifted culturally, but for thousands of men, national service defined early adulthood and shaped character. Quieter than trams and cleaner than smoky buses, trolleybuses ran on overhead wires through many British cities. Their humming motors and swaying poles gave them a distinct look. Children loved riding them, peering from high windows. By the mid-1960s, most were phased out, leaving only fond memories of electrified streets. Separate from general rationing, special grocery ration books were carefully preserved. They contained coupons for essentials like sugar, butter, and meat. Housewives planned meals around them, balancing portions across families. Even as the economy improved, many still kept their old books tucked away, symbols of frugality, survival, and community resilience. Heavy, glossy, and built to last, Bakelite telephones were the pride of British homes. Their rotary dials clicked with every number, and calls required patience. Families often shared one line, keeping conversations brief. Though eventually replaced by lighter plastics, the distinctive look and sound of Bakelite phones remains deeply nostalgic. Back when indoor plumbing was still a luxury, outside toilets were the norm in many British homes. Families braved the cold, rain, and even spiders just for a quick visit. It wasn't glamorous, but it was everyday life, until bathrooms finally became part of modern houses. The sound of steam hissing and wheels clattering along the tracks once defined travel. Steam trains carried families on holidays, workers to jobs, and soldiers to duty. They weren't just transport, they symbolised adventure. Their whistles echo through history, even as modern electric and diesel replaced their smoky charm. Illness didn't always mean a trip to the surgery. Doctors would arrive at the doorstep, carrying their black bag filled with remedies. Families valued this personal care, where medical advice came straight into the living room. Today, it's remembered as a warm, reassuring part of community healthcare. Coal fires meant warmth, but also a constant mess of soot and ash. Soot collectors were simple metal trays that caught the black dust before it scattered through the house. Cleaning them wasn't pleasant, yet they were essential for every family that relied on coal-burning fireplaces. Headscarves weren't just a fashion statement, they were practical. Women tied them tightly to protect hairstyles from wind and rain during shopping trips. Bright patterns and simple cotton squares became everyday street style, symbolising an era where function often blended with modest charm in British communities. Nothing tasted better than hot fish and chips, eaten straight from newspaper wrapping. The ink sometimes rubbed off on fingers, but nobody minded. It was cheap, filling and delicious, making it Britain's favourite takeaway. Health regulations later banned the practice, but the memory still brings nostalgia. For children with pocket money, Woolworth's Pick and Mix was heaven. Rows of sweets in plastic tubs let kids scoop their own sugary treasures into paper bags. From jelly babies to toffees, the choice felt endless. It was more than candy. It was freedom, indulgence, and a Saturday shopping ritual. Even in the 60s, remnants of wartime remained. Many gardens still had old Anderson or Morrison air raid shelters, rusting but sturdy. Kids turned them into secret dens or playhouses, not realising their grim purpose. They were eerie reminders of Britain's resilience during the Blitz years. Horse-drawn carts rolled through neighbourhoods as rag and bone men shouted for scrap. They collected old clothes, metal, and junk in exchange for small trinkets or coins. Their cries echoed through the streets, part recycling, part survival, long before recycling bins became a council service. Before cafes, milk bars were the hangout. Teenagers gathered over milkshakes, jukeboxes, and conversation. They were wholesome, yet lively spaces where young people forged friendships, romances, and identities. These bars captured the spirit of post-war youth culture, brimming with optimism and music-fueled energy. Before fridges were common, families relied on ice deliveries to keep food fresh. Huge blocks of ice were lugged into kitchens and placed inside ice boxes, slowly melting over the day. It was hard work for deliverymen, but essential in keeping milk, butter, and meat usable. Humble tin baths doubled as decoration when not in use. Hung on walls or leaned in the scullery, they were dragged out for weekly family washes. Filled with hot water from kettles, they served everyone in turn. Cramped and simple, they symbolised life before indoor bathrooms. For budding engineers, Meccano Sets were magic. Metal strips, nuts and bolts let children build cranes, cars and bridges. They encouraged creativity, patience and problem-solving, skills as valuable as the fun itself. These kits weren't just toys, they inspired generations of inventors and tinkerers across Britain. In 1951, the Festival of Britain brought hope after the war, and its souvenirs lived on through the 60s. Mugs, badges and trinkets proudly displayed futuristic designs. Families kept them as cherished reminders of a national celebration that symbolised progress, pride and a brighter future. Corner shops thrived on small treats, and broken biscuits were a favourite. Sold cheaply in big tins, they gave families a taste of luxury without the price tag. Each bag was a lucky dip of flavours and shapes, turning even crumbs into a moment of joy. Net curtains became a staple of British windows. They offered privacy while still letting in daylight, and neighbours couldn't help but peek through theirs. Delicate patterns decorated almost every home, giving streets a uniform look. Beyond decoration, they became symbols of modesty and suburban pride. Before the Sun or the Mirror dominated, the Daily Herald was a working-class paper. It covered politics, labour issues, and everyday concerns in plain language. Families shared copies over breakfast, reinforcing its role as a trusted voice in Britain's mid-century media landscape. The famous Lyons corner houses were bustling hubs of tea, cakes and conversation. Waitresses known as nippies served quickly and cheerfully. For city workers, shoppers and families, they were affordable yet grand, offering a taste of sophistication. These cafes embodied British social life before chains took over. Long before tills printed slips, shopkeepers scribbled receipts by hand. Each item, price and total was carefully written on carbon paper. It was slow but personal, with mistakes crossed out and corrected on the spot. These handwritten records remind us of a more human pace of trade. Laundry day was muscle work when irons were made of cast metal. Heated on stoves, they required constant reheating, making ironing long and tiring. Their weight pressed clothes flat, but at the cost of aching arms. These relics turned a simple chore into a true workout. Cars didn't always roar to life with a key turn. Many needed starting handles, long cranks pushed into the front to manually spark engines. It was exhausting, sometimes dangerous if the handle kicked back. Still, it marked the early days of motoring before technology made driving effortless. Even after the war, ration books dictated what families could buy. Meat, butter, sugar, and sweets were all limited, with stamps carefully torn out by shopkeepers. They taught thrift and resourcefulness, shaping how people cooked and ate. Rationing only ended in 1954, but memories lingered through the 60s. What we now know as the Commonwealth Games was once the Empire Games. Athletes from across Britain's territories competed, showcasing strength and unity. For viewers, it wasn't just sport, it was pride, politics, and connection. Radios buzzed with commentary, and children dreamed of future athletic glory. Flat caps weren't just for farmers, they were everyday wear for working men. Worn to factories, pubs, and even Sunday walks, they became a symbol of modest pride. Paired with overcoats, they gave men a neat, practical style that still echoes in British fashion nostalgia today. Buses once had two staff, the driver and a conductor. The conductor carried a clunky ticket machine, clipping fares and calling out stops. Their chatter and presence kept journeys lively. This human touch made bus rides more sociable compared to today's solitary tap-on travel systems. Saturday nights were made for dancing. Ballrooms filled with swing, jazz and big band sounds, while couples glided under glittering lights. Dance halls were the heart of romance and fun, where young people dressed up, socialised and escaped routine. Music made weekends feel unforgettable and alive. Sundays meant family, roast dinners and tradition. Meat, potatoes and boiled veg served together around the table brought everyone close. Afterward, polite greetings exchanged with neighbours on walks reinforced community bonds. This rhythm of food and courtesy defined weekends in Britain, blending comfort with social warmth. And that wraps up our trip through Forgotten Britain. If it brought back memories or made you smile, give it a like and subscribe for more nostalgia. See you next time.